Hare Krishna. Youth is meant for enjoyment or enlightenment. Uh, Many times people ask this question. Okay, our life, what is more important in our life? Either enjoyment or self-discipline. So कई बार हम में से कई लोग को समझ में नहीं आता है कि enjoyment ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है या डिसिप्लिन सेल्फ डिसिप्लिन ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. होता ये है कि enjoyment हम सब लोग को अच्छा लगता है, मुझे भी अच्छा लगता है, बट enjoyment के साथ प्रॉब्लम ये है कि if we do too much of enjoyment from morning to late night, if we are doing one thing that we are enjoying something, one or another thing, so what will happen that we will lose our goals, ambitions, target in our life, and we will get dragged away from our path. And the self discipline, which is very very important for our development, but what is the problem with the self discipline? That no one likes to be get disciplined. अच्छा नहीं लगता, मन को अच्छा नहीं लगता सुबह उठना, मेडिटेशन करना, स्पिरिचुअल लाइफ को फॉलो करना, प्लान बनाना, हार्ड वर्क करना, टाइम पे सोना, फ़ोन नहीं चलाना, all this type of thing which is very very important for all of us, and we know it very well because we have watched so many videos, and we know that this is not good for us, this is good for us. But still this self discipline is not appealing to our heart and mind. So जो अच्छा लग रहा है वो हमारे ग्रोथ के लिए, हमारे डेवलपमेंट के लिए ज़रूरी नहीं है, नुकसानदायक है. और जो अच्छा लग रहा है हमें, हमारे मन को, हमारे हृदय को, जो अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है वो ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. So that is a problem. So how to create a balance between discipline and enjoyment, that is our today's topic of discussion. Namaskar and Hare Krishna to all of you. My name is Sandeep Kumar Singh. I am an educator and mentor in Siksharthakam, and I welcome all of you in our today's topic of discussion. I will make some points by studying some books and some audios and some videos, and I will discuss from my notes, and we hope that this topic of discussion will be helpful for all of us. So what is the first point? The first point is that either we are living in our material life, doing our office, doing our job, our studies, business, anything, or we are following certain spiritual process. In both of our life, material and spiritual life, that discipline and our balance is the very very important term. Because what will happen, due to the lack of balance, we do only one type of thing which is appealing to our mind, which is appealing to our heart, and we neglect all the important rest of the activities. So that's why there is imbalance in our life, and due to this imbalance we feel agitated and we feel disturbed, and ultimately we get frustrated out. So that balance is very very important in our life. That's why even the Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is speaking the importance of balance. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 6 verse number 17, Yuktahar Viharasya, this is a very famous shloka. Chapter 6 verse number 17, Krishna is speaking the importance of having balance in our life. So what Krishna is speaking? Krishna is speaking that a person cannot become a yogi unless and until he is living a regulated life and a disciplined life. What is the meaning of regulated life? Regulated life means that a person is sleeping on time, he's eating an important quantity, he's balanced in his recreational activity, in his work. Then only a person can become a yogi. A yogi means not having a long beard and having a very a old man. This is not the definition of yogi. A yogi means one who is balanced in his habit, in his work, in his recreational activity, in his sleep, in his work. Then only a person can become a yogi person. So what is the problem? Because if we are not getting balance in our life, so either we will work too much, more than our of our capacity, and we will neglect all the other important thing. If we work too much, then we will get collapsed and we cannot continue for a long time. And if we work less than our capacity, then we will feel emptiness and hollowness in our life. So that is the drawback. That's why we should have a balance in our life. That's why Krishna is speaking about importance of having balance in our life. Unless and until one doesn't have a balance, he cannot become a yogi. So what has to be balanced? Balance क्या करना है? इसके बारे में भी Krishna is speaking in Bhagavad Gita in the same shloka, 6th chapter, verse number 17. It's a very important concept. Krishna is speaking, these 4 items need to be balanced. The first, that is our eating habit. One can say, what is the importance of eating habit, that it has been discussed in Bhagavad Gita? Because overeating is very, very important part of our life. Because what we are eating, it's going to affect our lifestyle. If we are eating too much, then after the eating we will have a good sleeping, we will feel laziness, and we will have some health issues also, because we will feel some stomach disorders and gastric problems, and all this type of problems will happen to us due to overeating problems. And even if we are eating very less, then this will also create a problem there. So that's why eating has to be balanced. The second point the Lord Krishna is speaking, sleeping. Sleeping habit. The person can be very shocked that, okay, the sleeping has been also discussed in Bhagavad Gita. Yes, the most of the people doesn't know that in Bhagavad Gita, our practical lifestyle, all the things which have been discussed in the Bhagavad Gita is very, very appealing and is very relevant for our practical life. So even the sleep has to be balanced, because if a person is sleeping too much, so for example, if a person is sleeping for 10 hours, 12 hours, 9 hours, so that person will come into the mode of ignorance, and he will feel very lazy and drowsy, and he will not feel inspired to do anything. His enthusiasm will go very low, and he will absent-minded person, because he's sleeping too much. And if a person is sleeping too less for 4 hours, 3 hours, then what will happen, that he will feel very fatigued, and his mind will become very hot, and he will become very angry, a very short-tempered person. So that sleeping has to be balanced. In the same way, that over recreational activity, the third point that Krishna is speaking, over recreational activity. Recreational activity means over various type of activity we do for the time pass. That recreational activity, entertainment has to be balanced. अगर ऐसा नहीं कि सुबह से शाम मॉर्निंग से रात तक यूट्यूब भी देख रहे हैं, फेसबुक भी चला रहे हैं, ट्विटर भी देख रहे हैं, then this will also have a very deep impact on our life. And the fourth, that is work. Our work has to be balanced. We should work hard, but that hard work should be balanced. Not too much of the hard work that we forget all the other important activities. Then we cannot continue for the long time. We will get a kickback, either in the form of health or any other relationship issues, and many other type of problems will happen to us if we not balance our work. That's why the Krishna is speaking of balancing these 4 items in Bhagavad Gita. So how these things are connected to our life, we will discuss gradually later on this topic of discussion. Because why balance is important, we have to understand, because too much of the enjoyment and the self-development, both are ill together. Both are enemies of each other. One is like a fire and one is like a water. Both cannot go together. So that's why there is need of a balance. A youth cannot think that, okay, I will enjoy with all what I want and I will also achieve what I want. No, there is certain limitation, there is certain boundary that we have to discuss gradually. So yoga, there are many various meanings of yoga. Yoga means yoga means connection of soul to super soul, and one of the meaning of yoga is means voluntary, ready for self-restraint, self-monitor restraint. That is also meaning of yoga, because unless and until we are ready for the self-restraint, self-voluntary restraint, what will happen? Our mind and senses will always keep looking for some gratification, some enjoyment. That is the problem with our mind and senses. Our tongue will always like to eat. Our ears will also want to hear some or glorification on some mundane song and all this type of thing. So our senses will keep looking for the gratification, and that's why we have to do certain voluntary restriction in our life. Unless and until we are not doing, then we cannot follow a yoga. We cannot become a yogi. We cannot become a practitioner of we cannot practice meditation and all this type of thing. Unless and until we have yoga. Unless and until we have some control and discipline in our life. So that is very important. So why this is important? Why self-restraint is important? Because if we do unrestricted sense gratification from the morning to night, then even after doing so much thing, we cannot get satisfaction, because there is no limit of sense gratification. कितना भी हम enjoyment करने में लगेगा कि नहीं थोड़ा और करें, इसके साथ प्रॉब्लम ये है, enjoyment के साथ प्रॉब्लम ये है कि इसका कोई लिमिटेशन नहीं है, इसका कभी अंत नहीं है. So that's why we have to do certain force restriction also. So that we will discuss, that how to create a balance, that we will discuss later on. So one of the greatest challenge of the youth, which which we discuss nowadays, that they say that okay, we have very less concentration and focus. One of the reason is our unrestricted sense gratification, because we have five senses and five gyanendriya and five karmendriya. Total 10 senses are there. So if we are doing too much of the enjoyment, then all of our 10 senses are moving in the 10 directions. So what is happening, that our focus, our concentration on our work, our studies is very less, because our mind is our senses are distributed in all the 10 direction. But if we do some restriction, some self-discipline in our life, then if we keep our senses some calm, cool and composed, then we can put our best of the energy of our senses can be put in our work, in our studies, in our business. So that's why unrestricted sense gratification, we are facing so much problems of concentration and lack of focus. So that's why we have to accept, anyhow we like or not like, but we have to accept some degree of self-restraint in our life, because this is the meaning of yoga, this is the meaning of yogi. Then only we can become a practitioner of bhakti or meditation or any type of spiritual process. So how to create a balance, that is very important. Till now we have discussed the importance of having the balance, but now we have to discuss that how to create the balance. That is very important topic. So we will discuss 4-5 points in a very fast manner, so that we can grasp the concept and we can apply in our life with some analogies and examples. So the first point is that the enjoyment is like a salt. Just like salt is very important component in vegetables, if the salt is less, then the vegetable will become tasteless and it is not looking tasty. No one is interested in such vegetable which doesn't have any salt. And if the salt is too much in the vegetable, then it will also create the havoc. No one likes to eat a vegetable which has too much salt. So the salt has the very important role, but it has a very defined proportion, not less than, not more than. Similarly, the enjoyment is also is very important aspect of our life. It is just like a salt. But if we have too much of the enjoyment from morning to late night, we have only one purpose. We are enjoying. We are lying in our bed and we are watching our phone. Then what is the problem? Then we will lose our life. When we lose our target, our ambitions, our goal, and we will get distracted. And what is the problem? If we have no enjoyment, then also our life will become very dry. Neeras, से कहते हैं नीरस, कोई रस नहीं रहेगा लाइफ में. We will also feel very दुखी बन के रहेंगे. No smile on the face, always looking very frustrated. So that's why there is a certain degree of enjoyment should be there in our life. So rather than getting dragged by the senses, so enjoyment is necessary, that's we have to accept. So rather than getting dragged by the senses, या तो senses हमें ज़बरदस्ती enjoyment पर लगा लें, फ़ोन ज़बरदस्ती हमें गलत वेबसाइट्स की तरफ ले जाएं, या हम जानबूझ के हमारा बॉडी माइंड हमें ट्रिक करके ज़्यादा सुला दे, ज़्यादा खिला दे. Our tongue is pulling us, mind is pulling us. So rather than getting dragged by senses, we should make a conscious decision that how much and what form of enjoyment we are ready to accept in our life. We should not become fanatic. We are not saying to become fanatic and avoid all type of enjoyment and go to Himalayas. We are saying no, you make some conscious decision that okay, but define how much and what form of enjoyment we need in our life. So that in that way, if we are taking the upper hand on the enjoyment, now we are defining our enjoyment. In this manner, we can balance our enjoyment and our discipline. But if we are getting ruled by enjoyment, by our temptation, by our mind and senses, then it will drag us and it will engage in all nonsense type of activity. So we have to take the upper hand. The second example is just like the body temperature. We know that over 98.6 is the normal temperature of our body, and if one is crossing 107 degree, then we have to leave the body. And if a person is getting below suppose some at 0 degree, as we know that water is getting freeze out and becoming and it turn into the cold. So we are not saying to go into 107 and 0. It's both are the extreme points and both are not important. Both are havoc. Both will create disturbance in our life. So what we are saying, we should define a normal temperature in our life, just like 98.6. So rather than too much of enjoyment and rather than no enjoyment, rather than 107 degree and 0 degree, we should create 98.6 degree in our life. We should define a range, the range in which we can live, the range of enjoyment, the boundary of enjoyment, the lower and upper limit of enjoyment. Okay, this is my boundary. In this boundary, I will enjoy my life. And when we define the boundary, then we know the clear-cut thing. Okay, these type of enjoyment I will accept, and these type of enjoyment which are out of my boundary, I will not accept. Because these type of enjoyment which is out of my boundary, they are not good for my development. They are not good for my spiritual life. They are not good for my self-development. So I will avoid such type of enjoyment. So defining the range is also one of the very important aspect for creating the balance between self-development and enjoyment. Now, the third point is that form of enjoyment which are which are conducive for our self-development, for our spiritual life, for our self-development. That form of self-enjoyment we have to define, because we have a variety of enjoyment. So we have to check that, okay, what type of enjoyment is very important and it's conducive for my growth, for my spiritual life, for my studies. And if certain type of enjoyment is very important, is very helpful, then we have to accept it. Anyhow, we are not saying to reject enjoyment. We are saying, okay, search for those enjoyment which are favorable, which are supporting for our development, and those enjoyment we have to accept. In the same way, there is a need of constant balance. This is a very, very important concept, my dear brothers and sisters, because this balancing is not a 1 day or a 2 day or 1 week, 1 month, 1 year point. This is a lifetime commitment. This is a lifetime process. Just like if we are just riding a bicycle, so we have to balance this handle, because if there is any imbalance, then ultimately we will get slip off. Similarly, there is a continuous balance is requirement. This is not a 1 day process. So it's a keep trying. There is a need for constant balance between enjoyment and the self discipline. हो सकता है कभी हो जाए बहुत अच्छा, हो सकता है कभी ना हो, तो परेशान नहीं होने का, फ्रस्ट्रेट नहीं होने का ना. Again, we have to try, because this is a lifetime process. So we have to try for continuous and a constant balance in our life between enjoyment and self-discipline. And then now the last point of our discussion, make our self-development as a enjoyable process. This is a very important process. For example, जैसे आपको पता होगा कि जो snake का body होता है, that is very cold body. एंड बट इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि समर में हम जाके सांप को लपेट लें ठंडा लगाने के लिए. अगर हम ऐसा करेंगे तो सांप हमें काट देगा. एंड व्हेन द स्नेक बाइट, देन ओवर लाइफ वी विल लूज ओवर लाइफ. सो अच्छा है कि सांप को लपेटने पे जो ठंडा मिल रहा है, उससे अच्छा ये है कि उसको दूर रखकर गर्मी को सह लिया जाए. बुद्धिमानी यही है, क्योंकि पता चलो सांप का ठंडापन लेने के चक्कर में हमारी लीला ही समाप्त हो जाए. सो इट्स बेटर टू टॉलरेट द हीट. इन द सेम वे वी कैन फील, ओके ये एंजॉयमेंट बहुत ज़रूरी है, बहुत मज़ा आएगा, ये टाइम देखेंगे, वो देखेंगे, वेब सीरीज देखेंगे, वो तो बहुत मज़ा आएगा. बट इफ दैट एंजॉयमेंट इज किलिंग ओवर लाइफ, इफ दैट एंजॉयमेंट इज किलिंग ओवर सेल्फ डेवलपमेंट एंड स्पिरिचुअल लाइफ, देन वी शुड avoid and we should tolerate, just like we have to tolerate the heat instead of having the snake around the neck. In the same way, we have to tolerate that enjoyment which is an obstacle on our self development. And but there is another way. अगर हम जो सांप का जो दांत है जिसमें पॉइजन होता है, if anyhow we are successful in breaking that teeth of the snake, then that snake is not so much dangerous. Then we can play with that snake. In the same way, if we are if we are able to engage our enjoyment in our self development, then this enjoyment is not dangerous for all of us. Yes. जिस प्रकार से सांप का दांत अगर निकालने से पॉइजन नहीं, उसी प्रकार से अगर हमने एंजॉयमेंट को लगा दिया सेल्फ डेवलपमेंट में, अपने ग्रोथ में, तो एंजॉयमेंट से हमें कोई नुकसान नहीं है. वी कैन प्ले विथ एंजॉयमेंट. But for doing this, we should know a higher range, a higher purpose, a broad picture of our life. We should know the purpose of living. We should know the purpose of life. Then only we can engage such enjoyment in our life. We should know that, okay, this is the enjoyment and what are the consequences. And ultimately, I have to go in this direction. This is my purpose of life. When we define this is my life, this is my purpose, I have to follow the spiritual life, and this is my purpose, that I have to go back to kingdom of Godhead, and this is my ultimate purpose of life, and this is the enjoyment. So we can check, okay, whether this enjoyment is favorable for my goal of life, my purpose of life. If unless and until I didn't have the purpose, then I cannot use enjoyment in my self development, in my self growth. So by defining the purpose of life or purpose of living, by defining a broader range of our picture of our life, we can use that enjoyment in our self development process. But for this, we have to understand the purpose of life, which we can understand by reading Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and spiritual books, by hearing some spiritual topics, by associating with some superiors who are much advanced than us in spiritual realization, and by taking the help of those advanced devotees, those advanced spiritualists, by having their association, by following those process, we can understand the clear-cut purpose of life. Then only we can engage that enjoyment in our self-development process. Otherwise, we will, if we try to do it by our own self, then we will tricked by our mind, because our mind is not our friend. Remember always, our mind is our enemy. So by remembering all this process, if we follow this 4-5 steps which we have discussed, then definitely we will able to balance in our life. Thank you very much. We will hope that this video will help all of us. And now this time COVID is going on, so please take proper precaution and be safe, and please pray for all of us. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.